extended family is so large that I know I'd get in trouble if I started mentioning names, because I'll probably leave out people. So my solution is to minimize that and not mention most people. But it's only because there's so many of them that is the reason that I'm here. And I want to explain why. At the beginning of my career at the Naval Research Lab, Ralph Goodman, who was the associate director and eventually we became very, very close friends, asked me why I came to work in underwater acoustics. I apparently gave him some nonsense answer, and he retorted, "Come on, you don't go into underwater acoustics, you end up in underwater acoustics." In truth, I had applied for work in the plasma physics division of NRL, but they wouldn't have me. So it was actually an accident that I ended up in acoustics. And now, years after that initial question, I'm here with all my friends in acoustics. In between, I've spent 3 years at sea in various oceans and traveled to and lived in exotic places. I've accumulated many wonderful friends, worked national and international research laboratories, and for the last 20 years, I've enjoyed the pleasure and privilege of a university life at the University of California, San Diego's Scripps Institution of Oceanography, which is a fabulous place. And I never planned all this. Maybe I'm following Lefty Gomez here, but it was all an accident. More or less the same day I moved to Washington to start at NRL, I met my future wife, Gabby. And the next thing I knew, I had 2 kids and 3 grandchildren and plenty of family adventures that are still going on. At NRL, I had the accidental good fortune of starting my career with senior people whose major proclivity was to foster the growth of young scientists. My immediate boss was an engineer who demanded, after being told about shallow water acoustic normal modes, that we go out and measure them. I thought he was nuts. These are just mathematical constructs. It sounded like he wanted us to recover some sort of sunken stainless steel Green's function. Frank Ingenito, my first real scientific mentor, designed the experiments, which I basically went along as a deckhand, in which we measured these guys. And those initial results still stand as benchmarks of the field of shallow water acoustics. It was an accident that I was at the right place at the right time. But it was there at NRL that I learned that in any research establishment, if 51% of the product is the scientists themselves, then the remaining 49% would follow in good science. A few years later, I was going to a meeting at Sackland Center in La Spezia, Italy, and I stumbled into Ralph Goodman again at the Milan airport, and he was renting a car, and I was a junior scientist, and I planned to take the train. But he invited me along, he threw me the car keys, and said, "Hey, kid, drive us to Parma, and I'll show you a good restaurant." After half a day and a great meal, he asked me, as we were driving on the last leg of the trip to La Spezia, if I'd ever considered going to Italy to work. And there's that word again, work. I'd already been to the lab once, and I had been wined and dined by a bunch of Danish, Turkish, German, and Italian hedonist scientists. So I did think that this might be a pretty good place to work. So I brashly asked, "How do I go about getting a job there?" And he said, "You just ask me." So it was another accident that bumping into my boss at an airport those 5 wonderful years doing ocean acoustic research on the Italian Riviera. At Sackland Center, I worked with lifelong friends-to-be. It was a strange place because it was a NATO lab, so it belonged to many countries. There, Finn Jensen and I got into the habit of giving away all our models and results that we developed, and in return, the whole community not only came to us and expected from us new products, but they also freely shared with us their new results. Before we knew it, the center ended up as the focus in underwater acoustics starting in the late 70s. It wasn't premeditated. That would be giving management too much credit. It was just an accident. But eventually, Our computation acoustics book grew out of our Sacramento Center-related episodes. However, one accomplishment I'm particularly proud of at Sacramento Center, which was not an accident, was that I teamed up with a Norwegian scientist and we went to a different restaurant for lunch every day for a year. For that, I was the first recipient of the NATO Eating Award. As a matter of fact, there was only 2 recipients in total. As for mentoring, Henrik just mentioned my influence. Well, when at SACNet, some of my work including adopting a spectral code to other applications. After I left, Finn Jensen asked Henrik to continue some of that work, and he was given the codes I had developed. I was told afterwards that Henrik looked at them and immediately threw them into the garbage where he said they belonged. That was the beginning of Henrik's groundbreaking Safari Oasis models. So you don't even have to try very hard when mentoring. Accidental outcomes are okay. So that's it. Next, at the Naval Ocean Research and Development Activity, I was a division head of acoustics and ocean modeling. And they had lots of accidents down there. For example, it was a new lab and we had trouble recruiting people. Once I got a call from one of my scientists who had stopped in a gas station while driving through Florida and told me that the gas station had a master's degree in mathematics from Stanford University. I said, hire him. That hire soon afterwards developed the RAM parabolic equation model, our community's longtime standard for range-dependent propagation. And as part of the Navy laboratory, we eventually sent him to get his PhD at Northwestern. In 1984, I returned to NRL, and among other things, I was asked to propose a collaborative program, but with the practical caveat that it should not conflict with internal ongoing research programs. Not being too excited about that assignment, I conjured up a program on a subject that I thought nobody would be interested in. The program sold big time, and we had multiple very successful experiments in many exotic places. This was an accident with a capital A. In 1993, I was offered a professorship at UCSD, as well as an appointment as director of NPL, with its bizarre Flip platform. Flip was designed by a previous director, who was a World War II submariner, and his idea of comfort was that the senior scientist sleeps in a cabin for 4 instead of the other cabin for 8. There were memorable experiences on Flip, like the time we had a substitute cook who loaded the vessel when it was horizontal, but it took him a whole day to find the food after we flipped to the vertical position. Lately, I've been working with students, postdocs, colleagues in various ocean acoustic projects. A real accident actually occurred on a joint program cruise with MIT and Sacramento Center. The ship ran aground near the same place this recent Italian cruiser did. We were marooned on the island of Pianosa, which is used as a high-security prison. And we were doing this experiment jointly with the MIT group, and Henrik's crew was on their island, on the prison island, and don't ask about prison island. But awaiting us after the life crafts landed on the island was a lobster dinner served by the prisoners. I was provided with a true teaching moment when one of my students mentioned to me that he was told that the waiters were ex-murderers, and he asked me what that meant. I told him it means that you better finish everything on your plate, or else. I'm still having fun, because I don't believe in the concept of work, and I still go by my basic rule that it's best to work with people that are smarter than yourself. Of course, that makes me the dumbest guy in the group, but ignorance is bliss as long as those accidents keep on happening. I truly would like to thank my family for happily tolerating and encouraging and sharing these adventures, and my extended family and my friends in the Acoustical Society and my colleagues for continuing to mentor me. And I thank the Society for this wonderful honor. Thank you.